Hello everybody, this is Ollie-FA here, and today we are finally reacting to some horror videos. Again, 3 short horror animations. Yeah. Before we get into it, there's about 87% of people that aren't subscribed. So if you're watching this right now, subscribe. I'm telling you, so you've got to do it. But anyway, let's get straight into the videos. Right, so here we are with the first urban legend horror story thing animation. Let's go. Let's get straight into this.
The story happened when I moved back to Tokyo from the US in 2016. I'm originally from Japan, but my parents and I moved to the United States when I was just 6 years old. On the first day in a new high school, I was really shy and I was rather new to the community. I considered myself a rather shy person. I was a kid in a new area. It was the first day of school, and I sat down on an appropriate-looking school bench and looked around me. I instantly noticed a girl waving and walking towards me. Her name was Ami, and we would soon become great friends in the future. She later introduced me to her friend group, and I liked them instantly. They were very positive and extremely nice to me. Their names were Suki and Rumigo. Before I knew it, I had already found myself a new home. It felt like I was living there my whole life. One sunny day, we were having a picnic during our lunch break. Eventually, the conversation shifted towards urban legends. Suki started telling us about these, and she said they were allegedly real. She told us a scary story about a girl who appeared to be cut in half. Many people reported seeing her at night. Essentially, people claimed they saw a ghost girl with her guts hanging visibly out of her body. While this obviously terrified me, I was always the skeptical kind towards folklore and legends. I personally believed that they were just made for children to behave or something to scare people with. Suki eventually asked her grandfather about the story, and he explained it to her. Apparently, this thing was called a teke-teke. Legend had it that a girl was murdered by her classmates on a railroad. Her body was cut in half when they left her on the rails, and a train ran her over. And now, the ghost haunts people who walk by railroads at night. Suki eventually told us this, and there was a short silence. We all looked at each other and laughed out loud, except for Suki. She was dead serious. I told her that she'd been watching too many horror movies, and that things like this just don't exist in real life. We giggled a bit more, but Suki's face remained stone cold. She really believed it. I commended Suki's efforts to scare us, but let her know promptly that she failed. She rolled her eyes, and she seemed visibly upset. I knew she was a big fan of this stuff, but I never thought she'd believe it. She then told us, "Okay, if you girls are so sure that it's fake, why don't we go test it ourselves? We don't have anything to lose, right?" My laughter stopped immediately. While I didn't believe in the legends, I was still hesitant to go out in the middle of the night to some abandoned area. I was willing to prove that ghosts didn't exist, but not that badly. I had no problem proving Suki wrong, but crazy people and animals in the middle of the night were an actual threat. So, are we going to some abandoned canal or a sketchy location to prove this? I asked Suki. No, the trial will take place in our school, Suki said. I let out a sigh of relief. I mean, it was our school. We've all been there before, and there's plenty of people at all hours. So, what will we do? I asked Suki. Suki told us that we would be trying to summon a girl named Hanako-san. The urban legend regarded a girl who committed suicide on the 3rd stall of the 3rd floor of her school. We would have to enter that stall of our school, say her name, and punch 3 times on the stall doors. Then, she might appear. We decided to meet after our extracurricular activities in a 3rd floor toilet at around 7 p.m. For context, I joined a few classes where I volunteered to help my art teachers at school. It was a great way to spend my free evenings. Making origami and hanging out with people my age beat being bored at home any day. The extracurricular itself ended at around 7 p.m., so it was a perfect time to meet with the girls in the bathroom. There really weren't going to be any kids to bother us, and the school was technically open at this time. And so we proceeded with our plan. Roughly after 7 p.m., we met in the toilet. Suki had already prepared a few candles and warned us not to turn on any lights. She had her hood up. It was already giving me the creeps. We stood in a circle and looked at each other with straight faces. It was starting to look like some sort of cult. At this point, I was already getting creeped out. She rose her finger to her mouth and let us know that we were supposed to be silent during this whole time. She then took a red pencil out of her bag and drew something on the third stall. She told us quietly to hold each other's hands, and we did. We held each other's hands tightly, and Suki started mumbling something under her breath. She then said loudly 3 times, "Hanako-san, can you hear me?" I closed my eyes out of fear. At this point, I even started to doubt myself and believe that something might actually appear.
Right, okay, that is the worst thing to do, because something about closing your eyes and energy, and if you close your eyes, the more energy you give off, meaning, or take in, or I don't know, something, which means more ghosts will be, oh, hello, and then you're haunted for the rest of your life.
My heart was racing and my palms were sweaty. My legs started to give out. I slowly opened my eyes. Nothing was there.
Yeah.
Suki tried a few more times, but after a few more minutes she gave up and we left the stall. I was beyond relieved. Nothing happened. I looked at the other girls and they seemed a bit spooked but relieved as well. Suki finally gave in and said maybe we were right. She put out the candles and we packed our stuff and left. It was already dark outside and I knew my mom would be mad. I forgot to text her earlier that I would be later than usual. When we left school, I tried to reach inside my backpack and find my phone to text my mom. I shuffled around, but it wasn't there. Damn it, I must have left it on the windowsill of the bathroom. I looked up at that bathroom window, and the thought of going back in there sent chills up my spine. I eventually excused my friends and ran into the building. There was no one there except for me and the janitor working the late shift. I went up the stairs and slowly went by the bathroom doors. There was a dead silence by the opening. No lights were on. I was afraid to go in there. I heard a rumbling noise from the inside. No way I'm going in there, I told myself. But I stopped for a second and thought about it. I'm not gonna leave my phone in there. If I allow that to happen, someone's just gonna take it the next day. And what, I'm gonna allow that to happen because of something fake? And what would I tell to my mom after losing a $1,000 phone? No way.
Okay,
I'm going in.
Fair enough.
I walked in and saw my phone straight away at the end of the bathroom.
That's a big phone.
I tried turning on a light, but it wasn't working. That's weird. I had no time to waste, so I ran quickly to get my phone. I was happy to have it. But before I turned around and waved to my friends outside, I heard a thudding sound behind me. This time, twice as loud. It was coming from the third stall. I was paralyzed by fear. I looked up and down the stall and spotted a brown robe swinging over it. There was blood coming out from the bottom of it. I didn't want to see anything more. I ran out of the toilet as fast as I could, never even thinking about looking back. I told no one about it and tried to block it from my mind. If it really happened, this would destroy my mental health and the perception of my world. It couldn't be true. I couldn't have seen a real ghost. It can't be. As I came back home, I tried to go to sleep, but I couldn't close my eyes. I was so afraid she would come to me. I was up all night on guard, looking around my room. I even had a nightstand lamp turned on because I couldn't see the whole room clearly. I felt like a wreck the next day. My mom tried to ask me what's wrong. I looked so tired and paranoid, but I didn't speak a word to her during breakfast. I was paranoid and terrified of the thought of going to my first class. It was on the 3rd floor. But what I saw as I walked up the stairs was somehow even more petrifying. The toilet doors were blocked by a few police officers, and around them was yellow police tape. One of my friends approached me and told me about a horrific incident. Apparently, a lower grade girl committed suicide yesterday right after we left the bathroom. She waited for us to leave and then attempted to cut her wrist. That didn't work, so she hung herself. It then clicked, and I realized what I saw last night. It wasn't a ghost. It was a person. I was an eyewitness to that girl taking her own life, and I did nothing. I couldn't believe I just ran away in anticipation of it being a ghost. I burst into tears, still telling no one that I was there.
No, thanks. I know that personally myself, I would have been out of there as soon as possible. Oh dear, you see how I've been with the horror VR stuff. Oh dear, I didn't even get got, so you know. Oh well. Don't hang yourself. It's kind of, you know, something that you should really know, but don't hang yourself. Just don't. Also, that would be a very good thumbnail. The picture on the screen. Oh well. Don't do rituals or stuff. It's stupid.
Afraid of the consequences, I just told my friends that she must have came in there after I retrieved my phone. It may not be a ghost, but the guilt of what happened that night will haunt me for the rest of my life.
Well, that's fun, isn't it? Yeah, as I say, don't do stupid rituals for the sake of humanity and life and other people's lives and everything. Also, I'm sure the girl didn't look like that. By the way, I don't think she would have been deceased within a day. But anyway, it's an animation. Who am I to judge, eh? Who am I to judge? Anyway, that was the first one. Very spooky. Now let's get straight on to the second one. Right, so here we are. This is the second true, maybe, urban legends horror stories. Let's just get straight into it.
I always considered myself to be a low-risk type of person. I never really had gotten into any super dangerous or life-threatening situation. But that changed 4 summers ago. You'll believe me by the end of the story when I tell you that this experience changed my life forever. We were just let out on break by our school, and my friends were eager to go and do something stupid as usual. I was the responsible one of the group, if you will. It was honestly quite surprising that I even hung out with these adrenaline junkies. I was never a risk taker. I would always consider the consequences to my action before I took them. Many times, I was the balancing factor to my friends' crazy antics. Despite this, I loved hanging out with them. The dynamic of them encouraging me to try new things and push me out of my comfort zone was something I never really could find in other people. But when I turned 18, peer pressure started skyrocketing. I felt like I was somehow missing out on something, that I was living my early years of life in fear. This, combined with the people I was hanging out with, brought me to make some really irrational decisions. Whether that be shoplifting or driving with them at incredibly high speeds, I caught myself constantly trying out new irresponsible decisions. This tolerance towards doing stupid things is what I largely blame for what happened to me. Summertime hit and the temperature was starting to skyrocket. While most teenagers went to a friend or neighbor's pool to swim, we wanted to try something a little different. There was a nearby water reserve which was strictly prohibited to swim in. During the daytime, security patrolled the area and made sure no one jumped in that water. But at nighttime, it was open to anyone brave enough to swim among the various dangerous fish over there. My friends wanted to go there and take a dip with me, cool off during the hot Korean night.
Brilliant.
Rumor had it that the lake was haunted and that a lot of sketchy things have happened there. This of course only strengthened our urge to go there and take a swim late at night. Of course I was hesitant at first, but as peer pressure crept in, I went along with it. We arrived at the lake around midnight. We were already in our swimsuits. There were some lights around the complex, but the lake was pitch dark. It was impossible to see where you were even swimming or standing or how deep the water was. Any of the said large marine life in the lake were going to be impossible to spot. This really frightened me. Sure, I was opening up to taking new risks, but this was really pushing that as well. After a lot of convincing from my friends, we all headed to the lake. One of my friends guided us through the shrubs. We used a large pocket knife to cut down the leaves and somehow make our way through the fence. When we got to the lake, I reluctantly got in. It really wasn't that bad at first. The water was quite nice and it was a lot of fun swimming in the dark with my friends. We kept swimming around for about 15 minutes while cracking jokes and making fun of each other. But as we were swimming, I noticed something, specifically someone out in the distance. I saw a mystic white figure out in the distance. It quickly faded away in the water. I shrugged it off as maybe just some light reflecting and kept swimming. Eventually, my friends wanted to do a dare and see who would go out farthest in the lake at night. Not being in my best decision-making mindset, I agreed, but I made sure to stay relatively close to the shore and grab onto a small concrete wall. Something deep inside me still felt off about the whole idea, but I went through with it. We all swam as
Really
far as we
bad
could.
idea, to be
Several of
fair.
my friends stopped halfway. The water was several meters deep at this point. At that point, it was just me and two of my other friends in the lake. We started swimming back. But as I was heading back, I noticed something under the water. It seemed to be a person under there. I looked closer at what it could possibly be and felt a tugging on my foot. I tried to look around and see what was happening, but the tugging just got harder and harder. I tried to wriggle out and see what could be doing this. Was I stuck on something? Why was it pulling me downwards? At this point, I was screaming and panicking. My friends noticed and started quickly swimming towards me. I tried grabbing at my feet, but something pushed my hands away. At this point, my head was completely under the water. I was losing oxygen, and I was losing it fast. My life was flashing before me, confusion and fear running through my mind, adrenaline pumping through my veins. I tried to make sense of the situation, but I couldn't. There was no way this was some large fish or lake shark. It felt like a human arm was pulling at my ankle downwards. My friends were trying to pull me up towards the surface, but it was no use. I even felt some of my friends trying to kick down or thrash at whatever was pulling me down, but even that didn't work. Eventually, I felt a sharp pain at my foot and started to black out, still confused as to who or what was trying to drown me. I woke up at the hospital a day later, completely unaware of my surroundings. Part of me wanted to believe that this was some sort of bad dream. As I started to panic and try and leave the bed, a nurse and doctor walked in along with some of my friends and they calmed me down. They explained to me everything that happened. I asked them what was pulling me down in the lake and they didn't have a clear answer. The doctors and nurses said it was most likely some sort of lake shark or predatory fish. Apparently they can get very large and extremely heavy and are certainly powerful enough to yank down a person of my size. But that's when I asked them, how exactly did they get me out of the water? The nurse looked down at my foot, and that's when I noticed it. Most of my foot was removed. All of my toes were gone and the side of my foot was mutilated. I turned pale. I couldn't believe it. I didn't want to see it. The nurse explained to me that my friends had to use the large pocket knife they had on hand and cut a large part of my foot off in order to save me. She said I would most likely have died if they didn't do so, as those fish don't tend to let go of their jaws. I was devastated and in complete disbelief. A few days later, my friends checked in on me to see how I was doing. We eventually discussed what happened. My friend explained to me that when they rushed towards me, they saw what seemed to be a human hand pulling me down in the water. They tried pulling me, but the arm was just too powerful. They even tried hitting at it or cutting it, but it didn't seem to work. As a last resort, they had to amputate part of my foot. They explained to me the legend of the Molokwishin. As per Korean legend, vengeful spirits that were taken from this world too early often sought violent actions against unsuspecting victims. The lake we were swimming at was apparently a common spot for the mafia to execute people and dump their bodies too. They often...
I said that. I said that. Thank you. I was right. I'm so smart.
lurk where their bodies are left and try and subject people to the same form of death. In the case of a water ghost, they drag you down and never let go. This explained everything. The person I saw in the distance, the ghostly silhouette in the water, the feeling of the human hand on my ankle. My friends tried to explain to the police and doctors that this was some sort of paranormal activity and that it didn't look like a fish at all. But the emergency services obviously did not believe us. As indicated by the signs around the lake, this area was known for large and aggressive marine life, and to them that was the most reasonable explanation. After all, why would they believe a group of trespassing teenagers? Currently, I walk with a prosthetic. I still get nightmares about what happened that night. My foot is a painful reminder every day of what happened to me and how I could have avoided it. We should never have gone in there in the first place. To this day, I still do believe that I was attacked by some sort of paranormal being, and that night will haunt me till the day I die.
Yeah. Oh, that was fun, wasn't it? Don't trespass. I think all of these stories actually have a meaning. Don't trespass for the second one. For the first one, don't do rituals and don't be a cult. For the third one, don't go to work. Easy as that. Anyway, that was the second one done. Let's get straight on to the third one. Right, so this is the third one. This is the final one for today. Let's get straight into it.
I'm an American citizen. but my family is from the South Asian country of Bengal. I loved spending time with my friends in the States, but I really enjoyed visiting my extended family back east. I worked at a business firm, and I handled a lot of information sciences there. It was a well-paying but tedious job. I rarely took breaks, but my manager was kind enough to let me get a couple weeks off of work every year. Those precious free weeks I had were taken up by a variety of activities. It was between going on vacation, chilling at home, or visiting my family back in Bangladesh. This year, the executives decided to give my branch a 1-week break over spring. But this break was going to be special. It had been more than 2 years since I'd last seen my greater family, and I really missed them. I instantly booked a ticket to Dhaka International Airport, packed my bags, and was en route the next day. When I arrived to the capital city, I swung by some old friends and we hung out a little. My old friends lived in the heart of the capital, but my family, on the other hand, well, they were in a not-so-urban area. While my parents moved to the large city when I was rather young, my grandparents, uncles, and aunts stayed in a small town northwest of the capital. The town was rural, but it was beautiful. It had a population of about 15,000 at the time, and it was a sparsely populated area. The town comprised of a set of homes, a school, a few shops, and mostly forest between them. It was a very remote region, and it didn't have all the facilities someone from a developed nation would consider normal.
Right, something's going to happen with the forest, because that's an oddly specific thing to say. Something's going to happen in the forest. Most of these bad things happen in forests, usually, especially at night time. Murders, so on and so forth. But yeah, something's probably gonna happen in the forest, I'm guessing.
The electricity was unreliable, the tap water wasn't clean, and the internet cut out most often. But in my eyes, the lack of comfort was worth it. People were very nice and the community was tightly knit. I could consider almost anyone there family. So I hopped on a bus and headed over there. It was a long and bumpy ride, but I got there in one piece. After years, I was finally reunited with my family. The village was just as beautiful as it was. At the door, I was greeted by my sister, my cousin Babel, my family dog, my mother, and my Aunt Tara. She happened to be visiting from a neighboring village. Now don't get me wrong, I love my family and it's always a blast seeing them. But my Aunt Tara was a bit odd, we'll say. Aunt Tara was a strong believer in superstitions and spiritual things. The things she'd say or try to make us do were extremely bizarre sometimes. She was seemingly a nice person, but was difficult to spend time with. She had a few quirks, if I can put it shortly. She would always tell us these terrifying ghost stories when we were kids, but most of the time, they weren't even for fun. She was serious. After catching up with my family, we quickly stepped inside and I unpacked my bags. But as I was unpacking, I felt a pair of eyes on me. It was my aunt. Sure, she was an oddball, but this was weird even for her. "Are you okay, Auntie?" I asked. She kept staring for a bit longer, but snapped out of it. "I'm fine," she said. "But the presence around us isn't," she continued. I was taken aback. I honestly thought she was done with this spiritual nonsense. "I sense a disturbance in the spirits among us. There are malicious souls and I sense them nearby," she continued. Okay, Auntie, I'll bear that in mind," I replied, trying to make the conversation a bit less awkward. "Be careful, and don't go out at night. Find a nearby shrine if you feel watched." She abruptly walked away. At this point, I was more annoyed than scared. I was honestly reluctant to even stay the night if she continued these antics. My thought was interrupted by my mom calling us out for dinner. Her food was delicious, so naturally I rushed over to the dining room. But as we were eating, my aunt was still acting strange. She had a sort of pendant necklace with a holy symbol on it. Every time we tried to include her in the conversation or asked her anything, she'd passively change the topic. She seemed very suspicious of something. We eventually just ignored her behavior and continued with our nights. But as I was about to sleep, my aunt knocked on my door. She told me once again to not step out at night, and that she was very worried for our safety. I couldn't believe it. She's still droning on about these spirits. I just shut the door and ignored her. I tried my best to go to sleep, but my jet lag was keeping me up. Bangladesh was about 13 hours ahead of the US West Coast, and my body clock was completely flipped. I tried watching some videos on my phone in hopes of passing time, but the internet eventually cut out and it was just me alone in a dark room. I thought about going out on a night walk, but then remembered what my aunt said. I didn't believe in that stuff, but part of me was telling me that it may actually be a bad idea going out at this hour. But my boredom was getting to me, and I said hell with it.
Brilliant.
My dog awoke to the sound of me stepping outside and started acting up.
That is some
At
demonic
first I thought he was
dog.
just cranky and tired, but he seemed to growl at me as I got closer to the door. That was odd. I ventured out anyways. As I stepped out, I felt the crisp air hit. The village didn't have many streetlights, and it was all engulfed in forest. There was a trail over to the side of the street my house was on, and I proceeded through there. At first, nothing unusual seemed to be occurring. The sound of the crickets roared as I walked through the wilderness on a dirt path. But as I was walking, I felt watched. I tried to shrug it off as my aunt getting to me, but I almost felt a chill going up my spine. I kept hearing a loud voice coming from a distance behind me. It seemed to be an owl. But as the hooting of the owl got closer and closer, there seemed to be something seriously wrong with it. The owl hoots were almost human. The sounds the owl made kept switching back and forth from an actual owl to what seemed to be a person impersonating one. The hooting got louder and louder, but I never noticed an owl in sight. I surveyed my surroundings and saw a misty black figure in the shadows. It quickly vanished behind a tree. I kept scanning up and down the trees to find out what was around me, and I noticed a silhouette of an owl in a tree. But as I blinked, it disappeared again. What was happening? Was it my eyes still adjusting to the dark? Maybe my jet lag was getting to me. The hooting suddenly stopped, and the forest was dead silent. My breath sounded like a roar. I slowly looked over my shoulder only to see it. In the darkness, I made out an owl sitting in a tree. The owl somehow morphed itself into a shadowy humanoid ghost form. I couldn't believe my eyes. I didn't want to believe my eyes. The misty creature slowly morphed around and started shifting from tree to tree, getting closer to me. At this point, I sprinted. I sprinted as hard as I could, adrenaline rushing through every ounce of my body. I heard the hooting start again behind me, this time like it was angry. I kept sprinting out of the woods. I ran. I looked towards my parents' house. I couldn't think of anywhere else I could hide. When I got to my house, before I could even say anything, my aunt was waiting by the front door. She dragged me in. The creature was still following me. I could hear voices at the edge of the forest where my house was. My aunt quickly took me over to our house's shrine and kept me there between a few idols. I waited and waited, confused and terrified. Eventually, the sun rose. I somehow mustered the strength to step out of the prayer room. My aunt was waiting outside the door. I explained to her everything that happened. The owl, the noises, the weird misty figure, and how it somehow chased me home. She explained to me that I was very lucky to be alive, and that I'd encountered something called a penchapechi. Penchapechis are a form of unsatisfied or malicious spirits that haunt the forests of Bengal. They take the form of owls and follow travelers in the woods until they're alone and cornered. The ghost would then consume its prey like a zombie and continue to its next victim. She said that she felt the presence of many angry or ill-intended spirits in the area. She felt a rise in these ghosts were most likely due to the flood in a neighboring region that killed many people. The spirits of those people did not feel satisfied with their lives. Most of them died far too young and continued to live in the afterlife as ghosts. That story occurred about a year back, and I haven't gone back since. But if I do, I will definitely listen to my aunt.
Yeah, definitely do that, lads. Definitely do that. Right, that was interesting. So, listen to people. Seriously, listen to people. When someone says, don't do this, don't do it. So, what have we learned today? We have learned that you don't do something. I can't remember the first one, but you don't do something. The second one, you don't... Oh no, the first one, you don't be part of a cult. Yep. The second one, you don't trespass. And the third one, you listen to people. So do you know what? All three of those things are stuff that you're going to want to do to survive. Yeah, brilliant. That's going to be it for me today. I hope you all enjoyed this. It's very late at night and I need to get this up in 12 hours, so that's going to be fun. But anyway, I hope you all enjoyed. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you never miss a single video that I upload. Join notification gang. Join the Discord server in the description. Follow my socials, whatnot. I'll see you later. Bye bye.